Hi there, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Michael's Backyard Marina. I'm just here hanging out with my Johnson 9.9 with the Big Secret. Big Secret 2.0. Now, you guys have probably seen the other video of the Johnson 9.9 with the Big Secret. If you haven't, it's probably the most popular Johnson on the internet when it comes to outboards. This is the Johnson 9.9 with the Big Secret. It's a long shaft, stainless, propped up dude. Let's just say I spent a lot of time learning on that outboard. That outboard was one that I was going to put on the old banana boat. I thought, oh, 15 horse should be plenty horse. Did I say 15 horse? Yes. The big secret on that 9.9 is it's actually a factory 15 horse with a different hood on it. Different decal or whatever you want to call it. So, spoiler alert. Thumbnail was clickbait for sure, maybe not, but this here 9.9 is also a factory 15 horse, and this part of the decal has been updated. Now the reason somebody would do something like that is we have a lot of no wake lakes or a 9.9 10 horse limit lakes around here, and this allows somebody to get a little more horsepower on the lake. There's still a no wake lake, so you still can't open it up and create a wake, but you can also have, when you take this outboard here to the river, a little more horsepower in the back end to get you and keep you out of trouble. So this one here is an interesting, let's call this guy brought this over. I don't do customer work. I don't make a practice of doing customer work. I prefer not to do customer work. I get a lot of people ask me, hey, would you work on my outboard? Well, this guy appealed to my senses at one time, and this here was an outboard. This is a 1977 Johnson 9.9 15 horse. His dad bought it brand new in 77. It's been in his family his whole life. He remembers dad taking him out fishing on this with this outboard his whole life. Now he owns it himself, and he says it runs and starts and does everything it should all the time. It has he said the only issue it has is that it has a, when he comes off a full throttle, and it has a hesitation, or it wants to die when it comes off full throttle. So I'm not sure what that's all about. We're going to investigate and see what we can. We're going to go through this whole outboard, you know, as far as we're going to check compression. We're going to possibly take the carburetor apart and put a rebuild kit in it, make sure everything looks clean and good in there. Possibly take a look at the fuel pump. I don't think it's a fuel pump related issue if it can hold wide open throttle, so I'm not too concerned about that. But everything in here is 1977. Not necessarily all of it. I'm guessing some things have been done over the years. One of the things I do have here is a water pump kit. I have a choke, the current choke knob is broken. But we're going to do the gear oil. We're going to go through this thing thoroughly. So this is a real good video for anybody that wants to learn about their Johnson. 77 up to the 80s were all very, very similar, except some differences. And we're going to go through and talk about what those differences are as well. Another website to go to learn about these particular outboards is Leroy's Ramblings. I'll leave a link in the description down below. If you have any arguments about some of the things I'm going to tell you, you can go there and verify. I found that information to be very, very accurate and just spot on in every aspect. On all the different Johnsons I've been working on of this era, I've discovered that everything he says in there to be factual. No question about it. He spent many years putting that together. So, without further ado, let's take a little walk around and see what this guy's all about. Now, one thing that is interesting about this one is it is a factory tag. If you're ever looking to find out what your outboard's all about, there's usually a tag right here on these Johnsons. Somewhere on the mount, there's a tag that'll have the serial number or model number on it. And this is where you want to go to get all your information for everything that you're going to order parts for about this outboard. So this is a Johnson 9.9 Seahorse. Mine over here is a newer version, which is a Johnson 9.9 not Seahorse. I think this was an 87. I can't remember if it's 87 or 88. And I'm going to show you something that's different right out of the gate, just so you guys understand something different about the years. And this is going to be hard to see. But this carburetor underneath here is a long... Well, this one's different. I changed it. Never mind. Never mind. I think I've got to find it. It's here somewhere. The awful carburetors. I don't have one. I have one. But let's open this one up. We're going to get deep into this one. We're not going to pull the power head off. But as you can see, this is a very clean machine here. Like I said, this guy's had it in his family. You can tell by the paint color that it's never been hot. The paint will start to turn tan and start to crack and stuff if this thing was to get too hot. That doesn't necessarily destroy them, but it doesn't help them at all either. But this has got the nice carburetor doesn't have the plastic top on it. That's the very much desired. And the one thing I want to fix is this needs a little more. You got your stop button here. You got your lean rich, and the choke knob is replacing because it's broken here. Pretty minor stuff. But we're gonna pull the plugs and check compression on this to see where it's at. The coils appear to be factory coils here from what I'm looking at. You also have your idle speed here that you can adjust, which is still all very much intact, and it seems to move very freely, so that's good. Like I said, this is as a barn find as you can find. This is a good, and it's not ever been in a barn, but it's been used year over year. This guy's planning on taking his kids out on a boat in it, I would imagine. And so this is what this one's all about. It's kind of cool. We'll probably take this apart. This feels pretty good. There's nothing wrong with this throttle linkage. Oh, I see. It's sticky. So we're gonna lube up a few things in here. That might be part of the problem when it comes off of idle or comes off high speed. It could be because it's sticky and not dropping back. We'll find out because you can change the mag position and all that fun stuff. Now, what's the difference on these years primarily with this type of carburetor that's not plastic? When I mean plastic, that means they had a years in here where this top thing was plastic. I'll see if I find a picture, I'll throw it up on the screen real quick so you can see the difference. So these are two Johnson carburetors. So right here, I want to show you the biggest difference between now this, you guys can argue with me all you want, from 1970 something to 1980 something when they made this 9.9. The biggest difference between a 9.9 and the biggest difference between a 9.9 and a 15 horse is the size of the bore in the carburetor. Hey, everybody say hi.
Hello.
This is Kurt, my son, the drone pilot. You know him. So if you look down in the hole of this thing, and you can see how that thing necks down so small down in there. See how that bore gets really small? And on this one, I'm going to open this up. This bore stays straight, pretty much straight through. So it's a lot bigger bore. More air, more compression, or more fuel, more power. And it brings it up to basically 1,000 RPMs in difference between the 9.9 and the 15 horse. The 15 horse will run 1,000 RPMs higher in its range than the 9.9 will. So that's how they kind of governed it back by putting that small bore carburetor on there so it can only drink so much fuel, only create so much power. Cool. Well, with that being said, let's get in here. We're going to pull plugs. We're going to go through the whole, what I normally do, the discovery, to see where this outboard's at and what kind of condition it's in, and we're going to work forward from there. Now we're going to step through this motor piece by piece, little by little here, through this video. First thing I always like to check when I'm researching the condition of an engine, brought to you sight unseen, don't know what it's all about. Now this one we knew ran last year, had only very, very minor trouble, but I like to go through, and this is how you can assess the whole condition of the engine. And first thing I like to do is pull the spark plugs. We can look at them, and then we can also check the compression while we're doing that. Something else that's a little noteworthy about spark plugs. Ooh, that wasn't tight at all. Boy, those are barely tight spark plugs, barely tight. I wouldn't have wanted to run it that way. So that's why we look things over. We assume nothing and assess everything. Really wet, really dark, really burnt. What's up, boss? Boss is checking up on me. Huh?
He's checking up on me.
Yep, thought so. Checking up on me.
Love you.
Love you too, babe. So, yeah, both are very dark, burning very wet. Now, I don't know if these were just removed and were sprayed with fogging oil and cycled over, and that's why they're wet, but they are very black, so that means it's been running very rich. But typically, if you're going to fog your engine and let it sit for the winter, tighten them spark plugs back up the way they're going to be, because there's no reason to pull them again unless you're planning on changing them in the spring. And let's just hope you don't forget that you did that. So, zero compression. Let's give her a few yanks here and see what we got. Whoa, need to lock my wheels. What do we got here? Just under 90. Looks like about 85. Not awesome, but not awful. It'll run. Also, something noteworthy is there for these Johnsons of these series and these years, they actually had in the book 2 different spark plugs you could run. One was for low speed idling, which this has done a lot of, where you're just putzing around a little 9.9, what do I want to say, no wake lake or 10 horsepower lake. Let's give this a yank. This is about 85, right on the money too. So the condition of both cylinders are pretty equal. That's good. You don't want to see too much of a percentage difference between the two. So we know we got good compression. That's a win. Now the next thing I want to do, I'm not going to try, I want to check for spark, obviously. So we're going to put one of these old spark plugs back in here and see if we can make it throw a spark. Let me get you around here so you can see. My old windmill's a windmill in hardcore today. One of the things I'm going to do in the future, and not soon enough on it, obviously, is I'm going to get that windmill on its own pole, not connected to my building, and transferring all that vibration and noise to my building. So I can have a recording studio that's just a little less noisy. Let's see if we can see. Can you see that angle? Now sometimes due to the camera you might not pick up every spark, but we're popping pretty good on that cylinder. Good strong spark. Nothing I'm going to worry about there. Now another thing is on this tag right here, it says spark plug still on here. Champion L77J4 or AC M40 FFX are the spark plugs they recommend. But like I said, one's for low, there's one, not of these two, but there's 2 spark plugs you can run, which is a low speed and a high speed spark plug, depending on what you spend most of your time doing. What do we got? That should light a fire. That's good news. So we got a good spark. One of the things I will do is I'll put new spark plugs in instead of using the old ones. Just because it's the beginning of the season, why not start off fresh? Next thing I'm going to do is take a look at this air box and carburetor setup. And then we'll also address this little slack rope problem. Just 4 screws here, I'm sorry, to take the top of this air box cover off. These don't have air cleaners. If you guys are new to the outboard world, there are no air cleaners, filters, just air boxes. They're kind of like a silencer to help muffle some of the intake noise. But you're on the water, not a lot of dust typically that you have to worry about ruining your engine. Now, in order to take a look at the carburetor and get down here to this choke lever, I guess 2 more screws in here we got to pull off. These appear to be just a straight blade. Now, one thing you would do about these, when you put this back in, you want to shove it back because there's a seal on the inside here that helps seal off and not let air leak around areas that you don't want coming through the air box. You know, you want everything to come through the air box if possible. And I've seen people run them without these on here. They're just a little noisier. You will have to pop your knob off here. Your lean just presses on. Then you can finagle that out of there. Set it aside. And now you've gained access to your carburetor. There's a little link here, a little clip here, that's held down with those two screws underneath here that actually hold your choke lever in place. And as you can see here, they have a couple of detents here and here that allow this thing to click and choke and click off a choke. So we'll just pull that out straight on out like that. Choke lever's out. We're going to be replacing that because of the broken knob. Now, in order to remove the carburetor, I want to clean this carburetor out. I don't like leaving it untouched or unlooked at because you just never know. So there is one little spring we'll take off of here. This spring is designed, if you have the throttle on and this is forward, it won't let you pull the cord because it won't let you start it in like a wide open or something off of idle position. So it's always good to take a picture of this stuff before you start taking it apart, just so you get an idea of what it all looks like and you can remember where things are hooked up at. There we go, we got that disconnected, so that's out of our way. And I do believe I want to remove this screw just to get some of this stuff out of my way. Comes apart pretty easy to get it out of your way so you don't have to wrestle around with something flopping here, because we are going to take this recoil starter off. I'll stick that back in there so I know where it goes. In order to get to the nut on the back side over here of the carburetor, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's one here and one here that holds the carburetor in place, and then the fuel line has to be removed. Once you get that off, you can remove the carburetor. But in order to do that, I like to remove this starter. Now, as you can see here, this here piece can pry out, slides out of the rubber, should. This will allow you to get to the knot. This doesn't actually have a knot per se, as it's got this little serpentine that it's got it going through so that it can not slip out. There's really not a knot in there, it's just trapped in this little maze. Now what I like to do is, that's all fully relaxed there. The spring's not under any tension. I'm going to take this loose and then we'll lift this assembly out, and I'll try to keep this all together. What I'll do before I put it back together is give it a couple more winds on there so it has enough tension to draw that string all the way in. Works a lot better if you grab the right size. I think this is 9/16. Yeah. Now I'm pushing down on this right now just to kind of keep things from getting floppy on me. My tool was causing me more trouble than it was worth. You don't want this to pop out of here. The spring can uncoil. It's actually pretty relaxed right now, so it's going to be all right. All right, now we can access this nut clear over here, and it's hard to see. And I can actually remove this little wheel with the screwdriver right here on the side. Just one more thing to get out of our way. Just remember how it all goes back together. That's all you got to remember. Take pictures. Everybody has a phone. Take pictures so you have a reference. You don't have to worry about trying to figure it out, because it can cost you a lot of time if you're not familiar. One thing I like to make note of to remember is notice which way this little linkage is pointing. The horseshoe, you know, it's going down, over to the right, down, and back in. So you remember how that goes back together when you go to put it all back together. Now I believe it takes a 7/16 wrench, yep, to start taking this carburetor off. And it becomes very easy now that we have access to both sides. We can slide this up and out a little ways. Fuel line's gonna hold me up a little bit. I'm gonna have to remove that clip off of there. I got it up so I can gain access to it. I like having a pair of these little nippers to get in here. They're not too bulky. And don't be alarmed that they just use a zip tie to hold the fuel line on. That's how they do it. You just put another zip tie on to put it back together. Now let's see if I can get this up and over. Now me personally, I wouldn't replace this particular hose because it's still pretty pliable. It's not dry rotted. It's still pretty rubbery. There. Carburetor removed. Very simple, nothing fancy. Nothing too complicated. Let's take it apart. Now, one thing this gentleman did tell me about this carburetor, or about this, what he normally did and his dad always did, is before they took it out of the water every time, they pulled the fuel line hose off and ran the carburetor dry every time. That will definitely prevent it from getting gummed up. Now, because not everybody's in the habit of using high quality, full synthetic, because they're available now. Back in the day, they weren't. Full synthetic motor oil, or two-stroke oil, I should say. I only run AMSOIL two-stroke oil in everything two-stroke I own. Even my little four-wheeler that the grandkids ride. Just because it's some darn good stuff. Some people might say, oh, you're wasting your money. Well, one thing I know is it seems to burn cleaner. Doesn't seem to foul plugs as easy. And with the right mixture, don't overmix it. Don't make it too rich. There's not much to these carburetors, as you can see. I'm going to pull this little thing out here. Remember how we took a picture and looked at it to see which direction it goes? We'll set that to the side. But there's really not much else to these. They're pretty straightforward. Now you can pull this clip out. You can slide this butterfly out. You can take this out. I don't see that as being a big issue. I'm not worried about it. There. That's a really clean bowl. No doubt. Gasket's in good shape. I would almost doubt that that's original. These will have a plastic pin here. We'll go ahead and push that out. try forcing out one side that has a little head on it. Make sure you push it out the right direction. Then we can take a look at our needle, our float seat. A lot of these have a little rubber tip on them. That appears to be in pretty good shape. Now, something I like to do is kind of see where we were when this whole thing started. Because you got a little rubber gasket here that seals off this needle. But I'll put this in, let's just poke it in straight up and down. And we'll go 1. That was backed out 1 turn. So now we know where we start. I usually do 1.5 as a starting point and then adjust from there. And as we run it in the test tank, I'll show you what I'm gunning for. This all looks very, very clean. Usually with a kit, you'll get a brand new one of these. This feels pretty hard. It's been in there a while. We'll definitely put it, obviously a new one to go in with the new kit. Make sure you use a really good quality screwdriver that fits this slot to get these out. This one shouldn't be a problem. This is your jet here. You just want to make sure that's wide open and clean, not plugged at all. I almost feel bad about putting a kit in this one just because it is in such good shape, but I also want to make sure it's as fresh as it can be. Remember, there's a little plastic gasket right here on that one. This is your needle seat. And look through that hole there as well. It's also very clean. And that's pretty much it. Now, what I'm going to show you next will be seeing if anything's plugged. There's little holes, and they're going to be very hard for you to see. There's little holes down in here. Yeah, it's looking down in here. There's 3 of them. There's 3 little holes. What I like to do, I'll show you real quick, is I'll take some brake cleaner or carburetor cleaner, preferably for this, since it is a carburetor. Brake cleaner won't hurt either, but you can spray it down. I'm going to hold it up where you can see the holes, and I like to spray a little bit in here, just to make sure all these holes, you can easily see if liquid is passing through them. Then I'll also shoot cleaner through every orifice. And usually you can see if everything's good and clean. Oh yeah, clean as a whistle. Nothing bad here at all. All looks pretty darn good. And I'll take it over to the air compressor and just blow all this off. Now this carburetor's honestly ready to go back together. There's really nothing else you need to do but clean it. new pieces and it goes back together. So we're going to start doing that now. Now that we're fully clean, well, we know everything's good and clean. There's nothing floating around nasty in here that's causing any issues. I'll put the needle seat with the little gasket under it back in there. We've got our main jet here that is just spotless, so we're going to stick that back in. There's not a lot to these guys. These are carburetors you should not be afraid of. Your worst enemy would be something getting in here plugging up your air. But as we saw, this one was very clean. I have a new rubber gasket to go in here. And no, it does not have threads in it, so don't look for it to have threads in it. Those threads are kind of self-forming. So you just kind of thread them in there. And it'll pick up and start screwing in, kind of like an old wood screw. But you want to be careful when you get down at the threads that are down in here. When it picks those up, make sure you don't bind anything up. It should all go in fairly easy by hand. I mean, when I mean easy, I mean 2-finger easy. You put a wrench on this, you're going to wreck things. So what I'm going to do is take this down in, bottom it out. Right there, back where it was. We'll come out 1.5 turns. We'll pull that back off and we'll leave that just like that. Now we'll put the float and needle in, and that little needle just hangs across the top of that like that. I don't know if you can see it, but as this thing, let me put the pin in. Put that back in there like that. It should be able to fall open like that. And it should be sitting pretty much horizontal. There's no really way to adjust it except for bending it a little bit. You can bend this tab right here. And this one's sitting a little below horizontal. So I'm gonna grab it here. I'm gonna give it a little flex. Not much, it don't take much. But you're looking at this surface is here to be horizontal. Parallel, I should say. Not horizontal, but parallel to the bowl. Or to this face. And then that's all you need to do. It's pretty straightforward. These, like I said, it doesn't get any simpler than these carbs right here. I'll tell you what. We'll put our new gasket on here. Should be able to hear that float. And that right there is all there is to rebuilding this carburetor. There's nothing else to this. This is your main adjustment for your lean mixture, idle mixture basically. Idle to rich mixture for your speeds. I mean, it's simple. We do have a new gasket for here. So we'll put that on. And we'll put this back in place. One thing we want to do is make sure we get this thing back where it belongs. And we can set the carburetor back in place. Now make sure all your gasketed surfaces are clean. I got my little gasket scraper here that'll take off any of that. There's some leftover gasket on this face here. You don't want anything to create any air leaks here because that'll cause it to lean out. You don't want that. Now before you get your carburetor all the way back in there, you want to get your fuel line snuck back on there while it's accessible. Alrighty, we're back. We've got everything put back together on the top end here. There again, it's just the reverse of taking it back apart. Now, one thing I haven't put back on is the air box, just because I wanted to show you that I've got the new lever in. That fits right in here. I've got all the springs back in place, just so I wanted you guys to see everything where it's supposed to be. This little piece here is back in place. We've got tension when it's all the way closed now. This was just like one more wrap around it was all, and that put plenty of tension. So she comes back nice and tight like it should be. We got our kill switch here. All that's left to do is put the air box back on, and then we'll put the spark plugs back in. And I've actually got ones I bought. These are a crossover for the ones that are listed. This is one that I like to run here. The Johnson 15 horse. They're the NGK 2173 BUZ HW-2. So I'm gonna put 2 new ones of these back in, and then everything will be freshened up on the top end. Now, something else you want to do. There are points to grease. There's one right down in here. It's hard to see. It's a little dot right there. It's kind of like one of these right here. And they take a needle greaser. I call it a needle greaser. It might have a different name, but it has a point like this on it that's tapered. Grease comes out the little hole in the end. And I use one of this style because I can use it one-handed and hold this in place in the other. There's a couple of areas like that on this particular outboard you want to do that to. The other thing I did, let's walk around the back side here. I greased this a whole bunch. Got all this old grease pumped out of here as much as I could. And now this thing was pretty stiff to move. And now it moves a little bit freer because it's got some lube in it. There is some tensioners. I thought there was a tensioner on here somewhere. Maybe it doesn't have one on this one. Sometimes they have a tensioner that you can snug up to make it so this thing doesn't flop very easy. But this has some nice and good feel to it. It's not too loose, not too tight. So I'm going to go ahead and put the air box back on real quick, and then we're going to go after the water pump. All right, we got the gearbox off. I'll show you a little more about the gearbox going back together so you have a little bit of idea how it needs to come apart. But you want to make sure you got a real good screwdriver here. And that wasn't very tight. Finding a lot of things that aren't very tight. This doesn't have to be crazy tight, but it should have been tighter than that. And so far, that gear oil has no water in it. Perfect. Now it's going to come out kind of slow and thick. I'm going to crack this top one loose and it should come out a little bit faster. There we go. Now this is some blue gear lube, it looks like. Maybe some Quicksilver. Something like that. I'm going to replace it with AMSOIL because that's what I use. AMSOIL is a better gear oil for this because it can have actually 10% water contamination and still not lose its lubricity or protective properties. But while that's draining, let's get back up top here. So now we're going to go ahead and pull the water pump off. We got a new water pump kit here. Looks like he brought me this one. He says fits most models 9.9 to 15. Part number 394711. Marine Pump Part Corporation, Jimmy at mpcimpeller.com. I've been in habit of buying a lot of my parts off of marineengine.com. I'll leave a little thing down here. But I've had real good luck with them. They got good quality parts, which is what you want. We got to back off these 4 screws. Now, please don't use an impact unless you know exactly what your impact is going to do for you. Because you can, if you have this in the wrong direction and you go to hit it, you could break them off. Then your job just got a whole lot easier. I will not use the impact to put it back together. Remove these 4 screws. Pretty straightforward. We can just lift this off. Hold the shaft down while you're doing it. Now, as you can see here, this impeller, there's a little pin here that drives it. Don't let that get away from you. And you want to make sure you put that back in when you're done. It'll probably come with a new, the kit will come with a new one, but look how bent that impeller is. That runs inside this housing. And as you can see, it doesn't fit very tight. And that would allow it to not pump as much water as it should. Just as a comparison, here's what the old one looks like compared to the new one. Quite a bit of difference. Okay, we've got this surface cleaned up. We're going to go ahead and put the new stainless plate that came with the kit on it. Make sure you put it in back in the same direction. There's going to be a side that possibly has sharp edges and a softened edges. Now these softened edges need to be up because this is the surface that your impeller is going to run against. And you don't want this being sharp and cutting it. Now your new impeller housing is going to come in a couple of pieces possibly. And you're going to want to install this into here. This is what your impeller is going to run in. And you just push it down in there. That should be flush right here. Shouldn't be sticking up at all. Brand new impeller housing. The other thing we got to do is there's a little seal that needs to go in here that you need to install. And that's just gently tap it in place. Tap it down so it's flush. This holds the water pressure from coming out, but also helps keep some of that debris and stuff from coming out. I've noticed something with this particular outboard down in this area. I'm going to show you some more detail on that here in a minute. Also in this piece here, you've got a, get it out. This will be where your water pump tube goes. Is in right here. And it's usually they give you a new piece of rubber. Match up with the one that you got that came in that you got out of your other one, which you can see is like this one. It's flat. The kit had one that also looked like this, that was extra tall, and it also had one that looked like this. So I like to replace it with what was in it. Hopefully whoever did it last did the same thing. Is what you're hoping for. We'll get this slid down into place, and it's got little ears here that'll snap down in here. So now what I'll do, I'll turn this around so you can see it. We got the flat spot on the shaft here. We got the little drive pin. Here's where I take a little marine grease and I'll put in that flat area there. Then I'll stick that pin to it. That'll hold it in place while I there it goes. Now it's locked on there. It's gonna have a little back and forth play, but it's locked in there now. The drive shaft is gonna drive it, as you see there. Now in order to get this in here, the easiest way to do it, and looking down on this turns clockwise when it's running. It never runs backwards. So I take a little more of that marine grease, just put a thin coating in here, kind of lube up this here. so we're not starting up dry at all. I'll put a little bit of lube on the seal here. We want that to be doing a good job for us. Then what you're going to want to do, get your fingers clean. This is the best way to do it. You're going to push down on this while you're rotating clockwise. First I got to get this in the right position. And just push down and it'll just fold those little impellers right into position where they're supposed to go in the direction they're going to be functional. Just that easy. This particular kit I'm pretty happy with so far. Everything looks like it's pretty good quality stuff. I'll leave a link in the description below. But here again, came with all new hardware. Now I'm going to put a little grease on the threads. It'll work like a never sees, so if corrosion or everything started, it helps prevent it from starting, for one. And make the removal next time easier. Not that this one was difficult at all. Now I start these all by hand, and I'll gently run them down just for time. Oh, these are different size. Nope, these are 7/16. All right. Now you will have a little bit of a squeeze down on this because the impeller is rubbing top side and bottom side here. That's how it's sealing up and creating its magic of pumping. Just be careful when you're tightening these. You're just tightening small bolts into aluminum. You don't want to break them or strip them out. That's the water pump replaced. Take a little bit of this grease here and put it around here. Throw this O-ring back on here. It had one of those on it. I'm not sure what got after that one, but that one turned into an ugly, nasty beast. This is what it started out as. I don't get it. Some chemical came into contact with it that shouldn't have. Now it's time to put the gear lube back in. Like I said, I'm using this Marine gear lube, 75W90, full synthetic by AMSOIL. If you don't want me to put this in your particular outboard application, don't bring it to me because I won't put anything else in. So we'll just stick this hose in here and we'll start pumping it until it comes out up here. And that's how we know it's full. I'll put a little ragadoo here to catch it, to keep from getting my stand all messy. But we'll see when it comes out here. Just pump it slow. It doesn't take much. These little guys don't take much oil at all. There she comes. She's full right there. So once it's full, I put the top plug back in because that'll create a vacuum-like effect. And it will seal it up. When I go to put the bottom one in, I'll lose very little oil. Not enough to even worry about. Get that snug down. Look at that, we didn't even make a mess. Not much anyway. Now this bottom one here, I'll pull this out. A lot of people have like Vaseline to rub in there to plug it up, but me, I've had good luck with just get this out of there and go right after it. Get your plug started. And typically I won't lose 2 or 3 drops. Just like that. We'll snug it up, we're done. And I'll change this gear oil depending on how many times I'm running it. If I'm running my outboard, say every weekend for an entire year, or should say season around here, because you don't get an entire year around here, I'll change it sometimes mid-season. Because there again, it doesn't take but a few ounces. Water will always settle to the bottom of the plug here. When you pull it out, if no water comes out, just oil, you could drain it, put fresh in. It's cheap insurance. It really is cheap insurance. It's better than having water get in there, destroy your gears, and now you're doing a gear set. And typically by this time in life of these 77 to 87-year-old outboards, the gear set will cost more than you could buy another outboard for. That's just the facts. So make the ones you have last long. I do apologize for the windmill noise. I'm trying to cut out as much of it as I can while I'm editing. I wish I'd have never put the windmill attached to the building. That won't be attached to the building. I got to get me another pole, put in place, and then I'll move it. So now we're going to pull the propeller off because we want to check it. There's two things we're checking for. See if it's got grease on it to make sure it's not stuck, and making sure there's no fishing line behind it. Big thing is fishing line. Fishing line will actually cut and ruin your seal. Spacer. Everything looks pretty good here. Right behind here, this is where you want to look to make sure there's no fishing line wrapped around here. If it gets behind here, especially this new braid and all that stuff, it'll just sit there and destroy your seal. This looks pretty good. I always like to put some fresh grease on here. That grease will keep that thing from ever seizing to your shaft because you don't want that to happen. This outboard had a lot of oil residue running down through the exhaust area and just oozing out everywhere. I think it's just, I don't have any idea what type of oil or two-stroke oil this was being used on here, but I can assure you it is not AMSOIL, because AMSOIL does burn pretty clean. So that's just a quick check on everything, and it does make a world of difference when it comes to making sure this bad boy just lasts a long, long time. All right, done and done. That was easy. Now, one last thing I want to address here. I noticed water sitting up here, and that's a big problem. And when I say a big problem, I'm saying a big problem in climates where it freezes, but this should be draining. There's a weep hole right here that all this water that's up in here should be coming out of. So I've got me a piece of welding wire. I'll tell you what I have done in the past, because this hole is pretty small. And if you end up going through sand and grit and dirt, wow, that is number one plugged. I'm gonna see if I can work a little drill bit in here. Yeah, look at the grit coming out of there. It's all I'm drilling out dirt. Nothing but dirt coming out. There it is. That's not unplugged yet, but it's pretty gnarly. I've only ran into a couple of them that were this bad. And the problem you could run into is in the wintertime, if you don't have a place where you're storing it indoors. Look at that. I'm drilling all the way. Just so much. Oh, wow. It's just muck. Finally forcing some dirt on the bottom down there. Okay, that's good news. That's just caked on nastiness. Oh, that's just nasty. So I'm gonna flip this over, point in that direction into my trash can. And we're gonna take some air and blast it through here. Oh. Now I'm passing air through there, yay. But in the wintertime, if this is holding water and it's stored in a shed, this will freeze and crack your housing. That could be detrimental and just ruin your day. Now what I'm gonna do is take some brake clean, see if I can flush out a lot of that garbage. Now I'm gonna put my finger over this hole so I don't blast it into my face and blow some air in it. Oh, wow. That's nasty down in there. Wow. That's one of the worst, goopiest messes I've ever seen in one of these. I've seen them full of sand and water, but not all this oil and goop. Wow. Blow it out one more time here. Now, if water gets in here, which water can, like that, it's running out. Now, one other little attention to detail I want to do here is this coupler here. This is your shift shaft coupler, and it has a bolt that I did take out to take it apart. And I laid it right over here. Little short guy. The shift shaft on the bottom of the motor has a little detent in it that this actually goes through. So in order to get this all the way out, I'll show you here, see if you can see. If you look down through the hole, you can see that bolt. If you can, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but that bolt passes partway through that hole. There's a groove in the shaft that keeps everything in place, so it's not just the pinching, but the groove itself in this bolt is acting as a locking collar. And that's came out quite tight on the shaft. So what a guy can do is you can get in here and just give this thing a little bit of it ain't much. You're gonna have to hold it with two things here. And I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a tweak. That was hardly anything, but that'll allow it to slide on the shaft. But the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this off the bottom shaft as well, clean this all up, make sure everything's nice and clean, because it's kind of nasty looking. I'm gonna wire wheel it off. That way when it goes back together clean, it's easier to put back together. Now if you look closer, you can see the groove around this shaft and all the grit and everything around it too. Just to show you how disgusting it was, look at that. It's pretty clean now. See, once you clean it up and spread it out just a touch, it goes back on real easy, which is what we're gonna have happen on the other side. Now that we got this cleaned up, we can easily slide it on and get our bolt back in there. Nice thing is we can tighten this one up. The other one we had to loosen to get to drop the whole thing out of the gearbox off the unit here. Now keep in mind, you're just tightening up brass here. Just get it snug. It's not going to go anywhere. That piece is ready to go back into the other half. Now at this point, we've done everything we can do to the gearbox. And I'm pretty happy with it. Everything looks pretty satisfactory. You know, it's going to run for many, many more years as long as you keep updating what you need to update on it. Because if you don't, that's when things go sideways on you. Now another important thing is to make sure we got all that grit that we blew off of out of here down below, off of here. It's good and clean. This is what drives it up top off your power head. When you go to put this back on, you got an O-ring here. I had to pull that off. I didn't show that to slide the water pump housing off, but you have to pull that O-ring off. Your new kit should come with the O-ring. Now here I use some more Lucas marine grease. I grease and lube this all up so the splines have some grease. With that being said, folks, we're ready to put the gearbox back on the outboard, and we're this close to putting fuel on it and test running it as soon as I get this back together. Okie dokie, it's the final push to get this back together. You've got your water pump tube here, it's copper. I put a little grease around that. I put a little grease around that. You're gonna send your drive shaft up through this hole, and it's in reverse right now. I've got it in reverse right now for two reasons. One, this shaft is in forward. That brings this down as far as I can get it. This shaft is in reverse, so that brings it up as high as I can get it to help me give me room so I can see to put that there inside that hole. And as all this comes together right here, we're close, we're tight, we're in real tight here. You're gonna be watching this, watching that, getting that up in there. You're gonna be wiggling the drive shaft or the impeller or the propeller, and so that way you can rotate. Right now I'm in reverse, so I can actually rotate this right now by turning the prop like that. I guess as long as I'm in gear, I can rotate it either way at this point. So now let's see if we can sneak it all up in there, get all lined up. Oh, see if I can eyeball where I'm going. I can see the water pump engaging right there. I can see this drive shaft, the shift shaft. Oh, it started. Gotta reach around. Okay, currently the drive shaft or the shift shaft is fully engaged. I'm gonna stop right there because at this point we have enough room to get the bolt started and tighten it down. Here again, you want to make sure you're using your biggest screwdriver that'll fit in the slot because you don't want it slipping. Sorry, I'm in the way of everything here with my hands, but now with that tight, I could rotate the propeller possibly and see if I can get it to go the rest of the way up in there. Just like that, she's gone up in there. We'll get a bolt started. Now I'm just putting the middle one in and bringing it up. You're gonna have a little resistance that last little bit because that O-ring that was in there, you're kind of compressing that. And that's fine. You shouldn't have to compress any more than what I just showed you there though. Now I'm double checking that I got reverse, neutral, forward. We're in great shape. No noises, perfect. We'll put the rest of the bolts in and we're ready to drop it in the test tank. Alrighty, folks, it's the moment of truth. I pumped the primer bulb up. I just pulled the choke out. We're going to move this to the start position right there. And then we're going to give her some yanks and see what happens. She's peeing, that's good. Sit and warm up now. That's like 3 pulls. it would die when you let off. So we're gonna let it run on full throttle for a minute here. Not full, but you know. That's full throttle. appears to be running like a champ, folks. Oh, folks, I'm gonna do the outro with this thing running in the background because this is the most beautiful sound. Anyway, there again, the Johnson 99 with another secret is it's a 15 horse, and she runs like a 15 horse. One other thing I want to show you real quick, while that thing's melodiously running in the background, is I found it at that carburetor I was talking about. And there again, as you saw in the video, this is a style carburetor that's in that one. This is the old style. This is a newer style carburetor. And it is the plastic top and all that stuff. I don't like those. I don't like them at all. They're expensive to rebuild. That top plate tends to crack and or warp. They claim they have changed the materials in it to make it so that it will not crack and or warp, but it's still plastic. Hard to beat the old 1977 version. Of this carburetor. It's simple and yet it's elegant. Now my Johnson 99 15 horse that I have, that's a 1987 model. As I showed a little bit earlier in the video, I do believe, I actually switched it from that carburetor I just showed you to this style carburetor. And I paid up to get it because I wanted that carburetor, that outboard, to be the best it can be. It's a blend of the world's changes, let's say. So it's a newer style, newer stuff, but the carburetor is old school and you can't argue with the results. That bad boy is gonna live on. I mean, think about it, 77, 87, 97, 2007, 2017. You see what I'm looking at? 2017 plus 8 more. 58-year-old outboard. I'm really curious to see how many of the newer outboards out there in 58 years will be like this. They're 4-strokes, they should last, but a clean burning 2-stroke ain't all that bad. Now I mix all my, I'm going to tell you this and I want you to listen closely. I mix it 50-to-1, 2-stroke, AMSOIL, 2-stroke oil. This is capable of being mixed 100-to-1 if needed. But I always mix it 50-to-1. It's a very clean burning oil. I'm not sponsored by the AMSOIL, but I sure would be happy if they sent me a couple of cases of this delicious liquidness. But I noticed my plugs don't foul, they don't get dirty, it burns cleaner. The whole exhaust don't drip and ooze with ugly nastiness on a regular basis. And the other very, I can't put enough berries there, important factor is do not put alcohol in your outboards. Don't run ethanol fuel. If you can run premium, but regular, non-alcohol. What I've got in here right now is regular, non-alcohol. Alcohol does not do any favors to anything. These were designed before alcohol that goes in gas was invented, was actually put in it. They're not designed to run that way. Even my more modern, small engines, let's just call it my lawnmowers and other, my mini bikes and my 4-wheelers for the grandkids, no alcohol. It doesn't keep well, and it doesn't do any favors to anything. Alcohol is somewhat corrosive in engines and against aluminum and stuff. Cars and stuff that are designed for it. Yeah, I've got 202,000 miles on my 2011 Impala, and it's an E85 rated. It can run 85% alcohol. Do I do it? No. Why? Because it's not economically viable for the price difference. It's not. All right, that's all I have for a rant, but I just wanted, these are very important things. So this was a really perfect example of an outboard that's been kept well and has been done well. I'll tell you what we're going to do while we're waiting. We're going to disconnect the fuel line, rev it up just a little bit. It's in gear. and we're gonna let it run out of fuel. Now, the one thing about the spark plugs I did put in here, I didn't show you a picture of it. Maybe if I find one, I'll flash it up on. Let me see if I find one. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can see this. See if you can see this. I'm not gonna take it out of the package, but look at the bottom of that spark plug. You notice something a little different about that? It doesn't have the hook, the electrode over the top. This is called I call it a perma-spark. What it does is it can spark from anywhere from that center, anywhere around the outside of this thing. I like running these. Mercury engines run these. They don't have a call out, but I do have what I've put in here. I started running my 15 horse Johnsons, and it doesn't have any effect. Still running. I pulled the gas out. You saw it the whole time while I was looking for a spark plug. It's still running. Oh, she's running out. There, she's out of gas. There. All right. Excellent. Now, we did a lot of things on here. Like I said, we rebuilt the carburetor. We started off with that. And when there again, rebuilding this carburetor is not really rebuilding. You're not boring, honing. You're just cleaning, making sure all the passages are clear. You're putting some new gaskets in there so things are sealed off tight. We did a little adjustment here. You'll get this thing where you'll figure out where to fine tune this air mixture knob. And then you got an idle screw over here that I was turning up down to get the idle where it is right now. We did the water pump. That was the nastiest water pump I've seen. I think it was all nasty because that weep hole that's supposed to be draining was not draining, and it was letting all the garbage and stuff just gather up around there and make a mess out of that thing. So hopefully the person that I'm doing this for will watch this video, watch it thoroughly, learn a lot from it so he can maintain his own outboard from here on out. My goal is to help you guys maintain and keep your old outboards running in tip-top shape to the best that they can run. This one here is a good example of one that's been taken care of for a lot of years. Just need a little more TLC. He wanted me to go through it. Seems like everything is working just fine and dandy. And I don't have any qualms about sending this home with him. And he puts it on his boat, and him and his kids or whoever's going, buddies are going fishing, they're going to have another glorious day. He said this thing always ran really well, but it had that dead spot when you go to, I think it's when he said let off the throttle, it would just come down and die, and then you'd have to restart it. It didn't do that here. And it could have been spark plug related, it could have been fuel related, fuel mixture related, could be any number of things that could cause that not to act. When you got all the right fuel and the right spark plugs, everything comes together, works harmoniously together. That's what you want. Man, oh man, oh man. I love it when one comes together. Folks, this is Michael saying if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. Be kind to one another. We'll see you on the next video. I got to get this one out of here. I got to get my boat back in here. I got some more stuff coming I want to show you in the boat world that I think will, it's rocked my world a little bit. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to get what I've got over there into the banana boat. And that'll be week after this. That'll be next Sunday. This you should see, golly, Monday morning, I think, is when this is probably going to come out. This is Sunday afternoon right now. I've still got to edit the video. I got to render it and upload it. That takes about 4 hours in total, 3 or 4 hours in total to get that done. So, man, oh man. I got all of his old parts in a box in the bag so he can see that what the condition of the stuff I took out was. And he'll be able to watch this video and see how well, how nice it looks when I put it back together. When I pick this up out of the water now, all that water is going to drain out of that little hole we unplugged, which is exactly what we need to do. Alrighty, let's get it out of here. We got ourselves a scum line started from all the two-stroke smoke in there, but I've got a fan over here that is sucking all the air out of here in this container. You can actually feel a draft coming in here, so it's taking all that smoke and taking it outside away from me, if any of you were concerned about that. I also have a carbon monoxide detector plugged in right over here, so if it starts detecting parts per million, and it's sensitive. I had some carburetor cleaner that had a kind of a strong smell in the shop, and it went off doing that. So, all right. I'm out of here, folks. Be good to one another, and if I'm lucky, I'll see you on the next video. Man, can you tell I'm a little bit excited? I love it when it comes together. just feels so good. It does my heart good. I'm gonna sleep good tonight. I'm gonna wake up, go to work early tomorrow, and I'm just gonna have a powerfully charged day. And Lord help me, people. The people that work around me have got to get on board with my enthusiasm. That's all there is to it. Bye.